Hello and welcome. This is World of Business. Now, in a latest development this week, the Confederation of Zimbabwe Industries, that is the CZI, released a manufacturing survey report which highlighted the improvement by the manufacturing sector in attracting investment in the year of 2023. We have seen, however, a decline in capacity utilization of 2.9% in the same year. We'll discuss this topic in detail with Mr Cornelius Dube, who is the Chief Economist for the Confederation of Zimbabwe Industries, in the second segment. In the third segment, however, we also take pride on this show to herald the unsung but thriving business entrepreneurs, and we will be putting the spotlight on them. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of World of Business. My name is Malvin Matava. Let's take a look at the exchange rates as of today. Exchange rates as of today were: the Zimbabwe gold to the United States dollar interbank rate was at 13.32 ZiG. The Zimbabwe gold to the Great Britain pound interbank rate was at 17.01 ZiG. The Zimbabwe gold to the euro interbank rate was at 14.49 ZiG. The Zimbabwe gold to the South African rand interbank rate was at 1.40 ZiG. The Zimbabwe gold to the Botswana pula interbank rate was 0.97 ZiG. We also give you the commodity prices on the global market. Commodity prices on the global market as of today were: gold per ounce traded at $2,351 after it went up by 0.17 percentage points. Silver per ounce traded at $29.65 after it went up by 0.09 percentage points. Copper per pound traded at $435 after it went down by 0.06 percentage points. Platinum per ounce traded at $988.63 after it went down by 0.43 percentage points. Well, that's all we had for you in the first segment of World of Business. Join us in the second segment as we look at the discussion of the day. Welcome back to the second segment of World of Business. Now, according to a report which was released by the Confederation of Zimbabwe Industries, the CZI, Zimbabwe's manufacturing sector attracted 128 million United States dollars investments in 2023 as the country continues to scale up the reindustrialization drive in line with government's National Development Strategy. Now, this is also against a background of the capacity utilization, which is falling by 2.9% in that same year of 2023. Now, to analyze this deeper, we are joined in studio by Mr. Cornelius Dube. He is the Chief Economist for CZI. Mr. Dube, welcome to World of Business.
Thank you for having me.
Now, it's a good thing that we have you, the Chief Economist from the CZI, and you're going to help us unpack this issue. Let's start by taking a look at this. The capacity utilization in Zimbabwe's manufacturing sector, we are saying that it fell by 2.9% to that is to 53.2% in 2023 from 56.1% that was in 2022. Care to help us understand what attributed to this change?
Okay. I think, as you know, capacity utilization actually refers to the extent to which firms are fully utilizing their existing capacities. In other words, it refers to the actual output being produced as a percentage of the total possible output that you can produce. So that means that there are two factors that can explain a decline in capacity utilization. First of all, it can be related to output, or it can be related to the scale. So in 2023, output produced just took a slight knock of about less than 1%, but the firms actually expanded their capacity. So if firms expand their capacity and output fails to increase by the same ratio as the increase in capacity utilization is bound to fail. So the decline in capacity utilization in 2023 can be explained by sluggish performance in terms of increase in output, but it can also be explained by the expanded investment as firms were more optimistic than actually what turned out to be the case. Yes.
So I am seeing a trend that we can only measure the capacity utilization by comparing with the previous years.
Yeah, as a trend, of course, capacity utilization is important. We need to see the extent to which our existing investment is sweating. In other words, if 53.2% capacity utilization implies that almost 48 or shall I say 47% of existing capacities in plants and machinery in industry is lying idle. That's what capacity utilization means. So the trend itself is important in that it shows us the extent to which existing assets are made to sweat. In other words, do we need to new investment in the manufacturing sector, or we just need to ensure that the policies that are in place make sure that the assets that we've already done, the assets that we already have in this country are made to sweat.
Okay.
That is the issue. So the trend itself is not that critical, because we cannot say if capacity utilization falls from one year to another, it means the economy is not doing well. It simply means that the extent to which existing investment capacity is being utilized might change from one year or the other. But for our case now, we are saying we also need to look at output produced to say to what extent is output increasing. If output is increasing while its capacity utilization is falling, it's not a negative development, simply because, but it's simply showing that there is still room for more output. So that means firms can actually be incentivized to produce more based on the existing investment that they have.
Okay, so we saw that your report that you released as the Confederation of Zimbabwe Industries tried to tackle this issue of the currency that you're talking about, because this development is attributed to forex shortages, crippling power crisis, exchange rate volatilities, and currency crisis, and so on. However, we have seen such huge milestones as well by the Second Republic to fix these problems by the introduction of the structured currency, that is. How much capacity utilization should we expect now in 2024 with this structured currency put on focus?
Yes, the currency is important. But what is more important is not just the currency, but the volatility of that currency, the stability of the currency. So far, since its introduction, we see some relative stability of ZiG at both the local as well as the parallel market. The official, and the parallel market, we see stability in ZiG. So that actually helps in terms of manufacturing decisions, because at least it is easier to order raw materials now and anticipate the price at which by the time you are going to replace them, the exchange rate would have been. So with the stability that we see, if it is sustained well throughout the year 2024, obviously we are going to see an increase in capacity utilization, because actually we are going to see more activity in the manufacturing sector. But obviously the currency is not enough on its own. But I think what also matters more, especially when we are looking at the manufacturing sector, is to reduce the level of dollarization in the economy. Because if we reduce dollarization, we are going to see the manufacturing sector actually able to use local currency to do business with other local players. Because obviously it's difficult, it's not always easy for manufacturing sector to be heavily import dependent. That survey that you are talking about, it shows that about 52% of our raw materials that are used in the manufacturing sector are imported. So that means foreign currency is always needed. So but now if we increase our level, if we decrease the level of dollarization and we rely more on local transactions, it becomes easier for the manufacturing sector to also become locally oriented, because it is always not easy to get the necessary foreign currency to import. So dollarization on its own is one of the biggest challenges for the manufacturing sector.
Okay, so now if I'm listening well, you're talking about some of the challenges that we are having as an economy from this currency situation that the government was trying to fix. But now government is doing its part, and the manufacturing sector as well as industry also has to do its part to complement government efforts. Now, what would you suggest? What are your recommendations to the manufacturing sector and industry players that are involved as far as reviving this sector is concerned?
Yes. So, SCZI together with the Ministry of Industry, obviously industry can do so much on its own, but obviously we need to partner with government. And we are very much happy that at least we are aligned with our parent minister, the Ministry of Industry. So what we are trying to do right now is to at least try to explore methods through which we can actually reduce this manufacturing sector decline. For industry's part, for industry's part, they also need to know that the moment they try to become more hinged towards foreign value chains, they are also making it difficult for themselves, because obviously today you get foreign currency, you import raw materials, and then next time when you actually need more foreign currency, that can actually also become a problem. So actually we need more localization of value chains. So we need to see the manufacturing sector also trying to build relationship with local players, which is actually why we as CZI are also happy with the efforts that Buy Zimbabwe, for example, is doing, to ensure that at least we become locally oriented. If we become locally oriented and taking advantage of the program government has, obviously the gradual de-dollarization, which is also part of government policy, by the way, of trying to say, let us try to, as much as possible, to have our local value chains being largely interlinked, so that we don't rely more on foreign products. Yes, so that also applies to the manufacturing sector players themselves. Applies to every player, every stakeholder in this economy, to say best way is to try to prefer to localize our value chains. If there are any products that can be locally produced, at least that's where we should see efforts being made to say, as government, as industry, as CZI also try to suggest possible methods through which government can incentivize the creation of industry that can actually reduce import dependence.
Okay, so now we have exhausted all things to do with locally. Let's now take a look at how the manufacturing sector in Zimbabwe is faring on the regional as well as international space. Would you say that the manufacturing sector in Zimbabwe is competitive if we place it, for example, on the African Continental Free Trade Area?
Okay, so what I can tell you right now is some of the players that we have in the manufacturing sector, they have invested in the latest available technologies, the maximum possible technology that you can have. Some of the plants and equipment that we have in some of the industry players is advanced. They are ready to compete with any other player in the region as well as global if the playing field is level. So if we address some of the issues as is the current conversation, already we are talking about stability, we are almost there on that respect. So if we also make sure that we reduce the cost of doing business itself, the level of the cost of compliance, for example, we are likely to be, at least we get to a level where the playing field is level. We also talked about that survey result. As you see, there are actually a significant proportion of the manufacturing sector firms that actually say they are ready to compete even under the African Continental Free Trade Area. Of course, others are not, say they are not ready, but generally you can see some level of optimism among industry players that they, at least they are able, they like the competition because they've been investing. So we talked about investment in your opening statement. They've been investing and they believe that they're actually ready to compete. But actually there are some issues that government is also already trying to solve that can actually try to level the playing field.
So now are we saying that if we fix our own house, then there's manufacturing sectors, industries, giants can also play on this regional field?
Yes, in fact, there is a study that was done by the World Bank on the African Continental Free Trade Area. They identified Zimbabwe as number two. If we're looking at the possible beneficiaries of the African Continental Free Trade Area, Zimbabwe is second after Cote d'Ivoire. But they also had the qualifiers in that study to say we also need to make sure that this issue that we're talking about that can actually facilitate ease of doing business for manufacturing and incentivize manufacture rather than retail and wholesale, we're actually going to be the second. Actually, in fact, if you compare with 2014, which is the best year, real income gains that we can get from African Continental Free Trade Area are estimated at about 12% for Zimbabwe, which is second highest after Cote d'Ivoire. So already, if we look at the opportunities, we look at our natural endowments, the resources that we have as an economy, there is nothing that can stop us from competing. But there's just some few issues that actually arose, actually with their legacy going all the way back to the dollarization of 2009 until now. There are some issues that just need to be solved, and then we are good to go.
Okay, so now here's something that is very positive that we need to talk about. That is under the reindustrialization drive, which is in line with government's National Development Strategy 1. Now, we have seen that your survey also shows that Zimbabwe's manufacturing sector attracted 128 million United States dollars in investment in 2023, comparing to just 101 million which was invested in 2022. Would you now comment on this, looking at the role of FDIs in improving manufacturing sectors?
Yes. So I think what is important there is the role that investment plays. Obviously, foreign direct investment can play a role, but I think the more pronounced role should be our local investment, which of course does not result in the need to constantly come up with incentives for foreign investors that are coming in to compete with the players that are already there. They get some incentives which local players cannot get. But what it simply shows, the increase shows the level of optimism that the manufacturing sector had. Also, it also shows you that, remember, in 2023, the auction system was still in place, and the manufacturing sector could access foreign currency from there. It also shows that if the manufacturing sector gets the necessary support, they indeed invest in our economy, which is actually what we want. We want the manufacturing sector to continue to invest. In fact, the focus area right now as an economy should be how to reposition the manufacturing sector as a growth driver, because we saw that if the whole economy is growing but the manufacturing sector is lagging behind, we don't see this growth being translated into the general day-to-day life of people. We still see poverty being high, while at the same time our economy is growing. So actually we see that the manufacturing sector is ready to invest. They are ready to compete. They are showing optimism. They are giving a level of confidence on the operating environment by investing at a time when actually we thought that things were not working well. So which simply means with more support, we're going to see more investment from the manufacturing sector. And as I said earlier on, some of that investment is actually towards the latest available technology. We have actually giants within our economy that are ready to compete with anyone and exploit the coming advantages that we can also get from the African Free Trade Area.
Amazing. It definitely means that Zimbabwe is poised for growth because, as he says, the manufacturing sector is ready to compete on the international stage. Well, that was Mr. Cornelius Dube, the Chief Economist for the Confederation of Zimbabwe Industries. We were discussing on the report which was released by the Confederation of Zimbabwe, that is the CZI, which was stating that Zimbabwe's manufacturing sector has attracted $128 million worth of investments as of 2023. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Dube, for coming through to World of Business.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank
well,
you.
That's it for our look at the second edition of World of Business. Join us in the third and final edition. Welcome to the third and final segment of World of Business. Now, in this segment, we share the spotlight on our Entrepreneur of the Week. Now, this week, the World of Business team spoke to Mr. George Mudanga, the owner of a 205-hectare farm and also the biggest pig producer in Chegutu District. Let us hear more from Sela Marere as she speaks to Mr. Mudanga.
Consistent with the aspirations of the Second Republic to achieve an empowered and prosperous upper middle income economy by 2030, value addition remains one of the key elements that have been cited to measure the performance of the manufacturing sector. Today we are in Mashonaland West in the beautiful city of Chegutu, where we have visited Mr. George Mudanga, the managing director of Bradford Farm, who is going to take us through the operations of this farm. He only started farming as a hobby, but later on developed huge interest in it and established a huge enterprise. We're going to learn more from this conversation. Stay tuned. Hey, Mr. Mudanga, we thank you so much for hosting us today. Can you tell us about the birth of this farm? What were the circumstances surrounding you even starting the idea of farming?
It's farming. I was born on a farm, so it has always been in me. My grandfather owned a farm in Wedza, so that's where I grew up with him, doing all the chores on the farm. From maize growing, cotton, groundnuts, and even reared a bit of pigs. So when there was an opportunity through the land reform, I then applied for this farm, and that's how I became to be here.
Okay. So you said you were born on a farm, and farming is something that you've always wanted to do since you were young. Can you walk us through the operations of this farm?
Okay, so this farm is 205 hectares in extent. And on the farm we do cropping, which is your summer crop. So we do maize and soya, almost 70 hectares of maize and 30 hectares of soya. And then we also do horticulture, where we grow your vegetables for the local market. And then the biggest operation we've got here is the piggery. We're running a 250 sow unit on the farm. We also do chickens on the other section of the farm under contract from Brand Agro. This is our operations and profit farming.
Okay, so you're seemingly changing the narrative of big farms only being owned by white farmers. It's something that we are not yet used to as black people. We are still embracing farming as a business. What can you say about this narrative, and how can we change stereotypes like this?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing that we need to do as black people is believe in ourselves, believe in our ability, not only to feed ourselves, but also to feed our nation, and also to feed even the region and the world. So there's nothing that's in color. We can do whatever any other color can do. That's my belief, and I am one person who is driven by that. And I also encourage all my colleagues of all colors to ensure that they are driven by the need to succeed on whatever you are doing, be it farming or any other business. We can do anything. Nothing stops us from.
Okay. So for the benefit of that aspiring farmer and the farmers that are already in business, what do you think about turning farming into a business, since it's something that you've already done?
The first thing that we need to do is to ensure that we know that farming is a business. It's not a pastime, it's not a weekend thing, neither is it a cell phone thing that you can control things happening on the farm through cell phone and everything. You need to be involved. Hands-on is one thing. You need to know what is happening on the farm. You need to know what the pigs are eating. You need to know how much bags you are putting if you are planting anything. So you need to be in charge, you need to be in control. The other thing that is also very important is to ensure that you've got a relationship with your bank, with your agri-tax extension officers. Also importantly, you also need to know your market in terms of when you have grown something, where are you going to sell it. So you need that kind of relationship with all these stakeholders that are important to your business.
Can you walk us through the value chain, looking at the various projects that you're involved in at this farm?
Okay, so I think for us, all the maize, all the soya that we grow are for our own consumption. So it's actually not even enough to feed our pigs and the chickens. So everything that we grow, we bring it in here for milling to ensure that our pigs have got feed. We are a farm that uses plus or minus 80 tons of maize on every month, and we need plus or minus 20 tons of soya also every month. So everything that we grow here works on the farm, and then we bring it out as meat on the pork side. So it is important again for us, our next step is also to ensure that we do a lot of value addition on the pork, not just to sell it as pork, but to sell it as processed, be your sausages, your bacon and everything. So that's the stage that we are moving to. But certainly we are talking to our financiers to ensure that that dream is made a success. And I think that's where we need to head to as Zimbabwean farmers, other than just to put porkers on the market. Let's put the sausage, let's put the bacon on there. So I think one a marketing channel that we are currently using is obviously the abattoirs. We market through one big abattoir in Harare, and we also supply retail chain stores in the country as well, and also independent butcheries.
So why is value addition important in livestock production, in your own experience and analysis?
So the first thing that it does is it adds value in terms of what you get as a farmer. When I sell my pigs as porkers, I get an amount, for argument's sake, $3. When someone cuts it and call it a pork chop, they get $5. So there is certainly an increase in value when you add or you improve or do a bit of processing. I mean, I've just given a simple example of cutting a meat and giving it a name, and then certainly the value has gone up. So it also creates employment. It also gives good protein to our country in terms of making sure that we feed ourselves.
Still looking at value addition as a concept, you rightfully mentioned that the other benefits that have come with establishing this farm is the number of people that you're actually employing. Can you walk us through your staff complement, both part-time and full-time workers?
Yes, we employing on the farm 37 employees at the moment. These are obviously on all our operational areas. But it is also important to let you guys know that we are taking quite a number of students on attachment. So now a lot of agricultural colleges are also requiring these students to have on-farm experience even before they enroll. So that's a big cluster that we are taking. We've got plus or minus 6 students at any given time on the farm. And then we also have our stock people, be they stockmen for the piggery, and then our flockmen for the chickens, and then our drivers for the trucks, the tractors, and most importantly, the skilled labor in terms of our production manager, Edwin, good experience, our farm managers, also very good experience in terms of ensuring that the farm runs smoothly. It's also one thing that I also need to let my farmers know. That's what it takes. It doesn't take you doing everything as a farmer. You can't achieve it. You need that necessary support to ensure.
So talking about implementing technological means and smart farming techniques, in 2021 you actually launched a pig artificial insemination station here at your farm. What are the benefits that have come with making that move, and also what are the other future benefits that any other aspiring farmer can look up to when it comes to implementing technological means in livestock farming?
So technology, I think we can't run away from it. It's coming to take over the production cycles. So for us in piggery production, the artificial insemination launch that we did in 2021 was a game changer to our head. Not only to us, but even to the people in the district, people around us. One, we are able to also sell the semen of the latest bulls that we imported to them. And the whole process on its own, artificial insemination, has seen our number born in terms of piglets that are born per sow increasing. And we have also increased the number, the uniformity in terms of being born of the same size. And that also increases the livability of those animals in terms of they're able to live. And we have certainly enjoyed that snap as something that has really changed how we do our business. So technology, we need to embrace it. Even in the stock feed manufacturing, we are also constantly improving to ensure that we make sure that the feed that we are giving to our animals are of the right nutrients, and we are always tasting. So it's all technology, and it's something that we can't run away from.
Looking at Vision 2030 as a concept that has been put forward by our very own government, what are the future plans that you have for Zimbabwe, looking at your farm, and the future plans that you have even for the farm?
I think the biggest thing that we are looking at is value addition, and also opening up export markets. We've done in terms of increasing our head, and we are now at a stage where we can actually start looking into what can we export. But obviously, we can't export pork just as meat. We need to export the byproducts, the processed product. It's easier in terms of the volume, and is also good in terms of the value. That's what we are looking at. And for us as Bradford, we have partnered with other like-minded farmers in the district, and we will be embarking on an abattoir meat processing at Selu, which is something that needs to come within the next year. So we are looking at not just sending live pigs to Harare for slaughter, but doing it ourselves there, and also building our own brand, which we will then put in the supermarkets to ensure that our people have got a choice when they go shopping.
So lastly, Mr. Mudanga, do you think that agriculture is the future of Zimbabwe, and what should we do as a nation to retain Zimbabwe in the African continent to its breadbasket status?
Agriculture is the future, and why it is the future is because we always need to eat. There is no way we will run away from eating. So for us to be able to feed ourselves, obviously we need to be organized. We need to take this as a serious business, not as a pastime, like I said earlier on. And we also need to work together as farmers to ensure that there is an exchange program, and also the upliftment of the smallholder farmers, which is something that we already are doing, but we should intensify on it, where we need to say, as a farmer, just have 3 or 4 farmers, young farmers that you also mentor, so that at least their production levels and their efficiency and the return that they get out of the business is meaningful.
A very educational conversation that we've had here today with Mr. George Mudanga, who has not only taught us the importance of agriculture as the future of Zimbabwe, but has also elucidated on the fact that implementing smart farming techniques is indeed the future of Zimbabwe and the African continent as a whole. And that brings an end to this week's segment of our Entrepreneur of the Week. Be sure to join us again on our next episode. It's now back to the studio.
Well, that was the third and final segment, which brings us to the end of this week's edition of World of Business. It brought into perspective that the importance of value addition and beneficiation as an element of the National Development Strategy 1 is very important. Join us again next week as we discuss another different topic.